Let's talk about cybersecurity. And actually, that was a very good example for risk prevention training that we just heard using our smartphones a minute ago. But we will go in another direction here. If there's anything you want to remember from this talk, then maybe it's when you wake up tomorrow morning, the threat situation may already look completely different than it does today. And now, something that actually my techies like the most, if you like, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and then you just roughly calculate how much it costs when the IT infrastructure of your company or the company you're working for stands still for 1 hour, or for 1 day, or for a whole month. Are we in the millions already? I think so. And this is why we not only talk about cybersecurity, but I will also give you some insights and hacks and methods how you can be prepared for whatever happens, because there is no company that never suffers from an attack. The question is just, when will it happen? That's the little introduction CV part. If you like, have a look at it, or later add me on LinkedIn, because it's not about me, it's about helping you to get into cybersecurity here. I prepared a little like what's going on, what are the hackers doing at the moment, what do they focus on? Then, of course, the AI part, maybe also a bit more about the quantum part, at least when it's connected to cybersecurity. And then I want to give you some insights why DevOps becomes more and more DevSecOps, so with the security part included, and what that means. And I just said it's also a bit of like life coaching for developers, like what is your company responsible for and what should you focus on? And then we have a look at like different structures and how you keep going with cybersecurity in everyday business. All right. Yeah, and let's start with the hard part, because this is about like reconcile 24/7 hosting and all the requirements. But actually, let's be honest, it's business requirements, like the money part, the tech and innovation part, actually the fun part. But in the fun part, we also have like hardened structures, so everything works perfectly, but in a flexible environment. Then we have segmentation, we have zero trust, we have high security levels, actually something that sometimes does not walk in the same direction as fun development projects, but we also want great usability for our users, for our clients, for our customers. Of course, we want to add all the new technologies because it's super interesting, new coding languages, AI, quantum, whatever comes, we like it, we want to have a look at it, we want to implement it in our products, but only the secure part. And then, of course, and maybe that's the least fun part, the regulatory requirements. It's actually a legal view on tech topics. It's never fun, but we've seen so much damage that somehow maybe it's useful and we need it. And we have the risk management that also suffers from the same prevention paradox that we have learned during COVID times. So the better you are prepared, the less attacks or people get ill. And yeah, that's on some side it's good, on some side it's bad, you never know. Depends on your colleagues and your management. And the biggest problem when we bring all these three parts together under the roof of cybersecurity is you can get a return on invest, but only if you invest time and money first. That's the mean thing. Now, the hacker's delight part. It's like, who thinks hackers make less money than drug dealers? One. Who thinks hackers globally make more money than the global drug dealing community. Exactly. So you can still think about if tech is the right path or if you want to follow any other profession. But yeah, hackers make a lot of money. And it's not because we are all so super bad at cybersecurity. It's because companies have huge problems to update their outdated system, or they struggle with their digital transformation. And what hackers also love is unpatched software. And some of you may know that like just patching sometimes is not the solution. Even in a business environment, you have to discuss with your management. You might have to discuss that with clients who don't want you to patch because then other things don't work anymore. So updating and patching sometimes is business struggle. But on the other side, if hackers find that situation, they like it, and they will try to get in this way. Then what we also see, and these are insights from our Site Traction data project. So we have a daily and weekly newsletter you can, for free, just sign up for. And there you will get an overview of the current threat situation every day. And what we learned from this when we aggregated the data is that the time frames are getting shorter. So 2-3 years ago, it was like when you had a media article or in a hacker forum or cybersecurity forum, there was some mention about a new attack. It took maybe 2 weeks before we've seen some German articles about it. And then later you've seen first media mentions that any company got hacked using this method. What we see now is like own data, that when I have a new threat situation, a new vulnerability in my newsletter, sending it around 9 o'clock in the morning, it's possible that we have it as known and used exploit around noon in the public media. So that happened with some attacks during the last month, so that in the morning you think, okay, time to patch. And then 12 o'clock, it's like, okay, first companies can't work anymore. So the time frame is getting a lot shorter. And then, of course, we heard it before, AI is on the rise, quantum is next. So much more technology to use, much smarter technology. And it's used on the illegal side, and it's also in development on the legal side of business. And the business for hackers, if it's a business, is they either want your data, or they want your money, or they want your data to make money. But especially during the situation in Ukraine, we have a new part that's getting bigger and bigger, is that we have more and more political targets. So, for example, the media industry before was not so super interesting for hackers. For 2 years now, we have huge media houses suffering from attacks every day. And sometimes they are successful and they can't work anymore and they can't publish anymore because the targets are shifting, especially from this political activist perspective. This is a great overview, and just brought you one slide for those who were like, okay, but what is actually targeted? Like, what systems are we talking about? Could it also be my own infrastructure or my employer's infrastructure? This is a data project from a colleague from the US, and he took the reports from the CISA, which is like the US cybersecurity institution, who's there from the government perspective taking care of everything. And he took the known exploited vulnerabilities that they publish and put it in a data project and made some slides. Links on the last slide here. You can have many more of these, but this one gives you a great overview that most people think if I pay Microsoft for security, I'm safe, everything's fine. Maybe not. If I pay Cisco, if I pay Adobe, even Google, maybe not. Apple, also a big thing. So if you have anything like this in your IT infrastructure, maybe look twice when it's about cybersecurity. The next question, who AIs first? Who of you is already using AI, like a specific AI software in everyday work? Who's using Copilot, co-coding functions? Who's not sure but estimates that some software he or she is working with has an AI add-on already? Yeah, the last is the big thing, because actually every software provider at the moment is either working on an AI solution, not published yet, or there's already a button or an add-on or something. And then it's very easy that you just click a link and you're in the AI part of the solution, maybe even without knowing. And on the other side, the hackers, of course, are also working on AI solutions. We have seen Warm GPT, and we have also seen Fraud GPT. And every other week, there are new use cases for AI coming up. At the moment, the biggest thing or the most successful thing for hackers is to use, for example, ChatGPT to write social engineering and fraud mails, like this phishing mails, because then you can automate this whole task, and from their business perspective, that makes sense. But yeah, let's be honest, we see much more from hacker AI solutions. And on the other side, it's also very interesting because, of course, also the cybersecurity industry is leveling up on AI, but that comes with a twist, because most companies, when they want to use cybersecurity AI solutions, they outsource the whole process. But they also might have an IT infrastructure that's still in the digital transformation environment. So you need to be very specifically, and you need very specific data to manage or to feed an AI that helps with the cybersecurity processes for this very diverse tech environment. And happens that companies pay for an AI solution and think everything works, and they up-level their cybersecurity standards, but they feed it, or the provider feeds it with the wrong data, and then it doesn't work anymore. So you see, there's also a little gap between how we want to use AI for cybersecurity and how it could potentially work and how it works today, and the work we have to put behind so that it works properly for the infrastructure we use every day. Then let's come to the life coaching for developers part. What does it mean for you? Who's a developer in a company? Who's a freelance developer? Who's an IT infrastructure admin on any level? Okay, same goes for you, but so super simple DevOps process. I know you also have your Scrum cycles and everything, but super simple. We get an inspiration for anything, our client feedback, and there's something we maybe want to implement in our product. And then we actually go to the implementation process. What does it mean if we add cybersecurity to this process? First, it means a stop, because we can't immediately implement something. We have to think twice, and we have to follow processes. And to follow a process means somebody has to sit down first and think about a process and implement the process, so that when we are at the point where we actually want to implement a new solution, a new technology, or a new function, then we can go back and use this process. And that's the trick with cybersecurity. And the somebody might not be a developer, might be the person or the company hired responsible for the cybersecurity processes, gives us, or you as a developer, gives you a process you can rely on, you can use in a situation where you actually want to implement something new, but then you can take a step back, follow this process before, so you can double check everything, and you have different dependencies if something is secure or works in a secure way, if it's live, and then you go to the implementation phase. And that's quite tricky because it's not fun to be stopped doing process. So also the whole communication and ego thing and so comes in. And on the other side, it's necessary because better stop before the implementation process than implement something and do all the work. And then best case, you get a bug report from a cybersecurity researcher that something doesn't work. Or a hacker finds the hole you didn't think of before. And last is nothing you want to have in your daily business. But good news, the strategy, neither the business strategy nor the cybersecurity strategy, and the framework and the structure is your business. Because as a developer, also as an IT admin, you have your specific job. You're not responsible for the whole company. You can't be responsible for the whole company. Also, when we have a look at war stories, like at these actually post-mortem reports, what happened during a hacker attack and how people acted, it's not possible, even if you're super highly skilled, to read a book or have a look at something or try to learn something with a YouTube video in a situation where your company or your solution is under attack. So the best thing you can do for yourself is that you focus on your work, on your skills, on your tech stack, that you do your further development, your further education. And if you like, you can add on this specific skills and maybe for this specific solutions and software, you can add cybersecurity skills. But you can never, in the role of a developer or IT admin, be responsible for the cybersecurity processes and keeping a whole company secure. Not possible. On the other side, what you can do, of course, you can talk to each other. Like, you can ask questions back. If you have the feeling, if you are in a developer team and you have the feeling, okay, maybe cybersecurity is important for us as a company, as a team. Maybe there are some white spots. You can go back to your founder, to your manager and ask, do we have working structures? Do we have a working framework, like processes we can rely on so we can have this stop process before implementation? And then maybe things start rolling and you have higher security standards you can work with. But don't make it your job from a developer perspective to take care for the whole company in this case. So I would say life coaching is over at that part, but something I can recommend, of course, structure again. And I try to show you like what kind of levels in your structure you have to take care of and other colleagues or other helpers, providers have to take care of. Something that helps, as I said, is the daily and weekly threat hunting so that you know what's actually on a daily basis going on in the world, in the global internet. Then the next is that you have this clear implementation process, the stop button, but that you also have a clear patching process. For example, if you're also providing infrastructure, so you have a software where other clients put their own apps on, for example, they might not want to patch you immediately when you find something during threat hunting. But better, talk to them before, find a process in silent times when everybody can have a coffee together, maybe a cake, and talk about things like that. Not under attack, not in a situation where you're stressed, where you don't know what to do, where your whole work and maybe the whole company is at risk. That's not the time to start talking to clients. Do that before. Have a clear patching process if needed with the clients. The next is, of course, product updates. Have a clear update process. You might already have that. That includes cybersecurity. Because much easier if you have a working process to just have this add-on and again, talk about it at coffee and cake and not talk about it or need to talk about it under attack. And then there's something that's for the IT admins, that's your part. We have the very tricky situation that, especially from the regulatory perspective, like the European Union, for example, always talks about state of tech, but they never give a definition what state of tech means. So everybody's talking about it, nobody knows. Like, for example, is two-factor authentication state of tech? Yes or no? If it would be state of tech by law, why do we still have so many software providers who don't offer it, at least not for free or not as a standard? You see, very tricky discussions, so nobody wants a definition at this point. But the work of an IT admin or of a company taking care of IT infrastructure is to have the development environment up to date at state of tech and also the training for developers. Because again, it's not your job as a developer to take care of that. Your company has to take care of that and provide you with the information, with the training, and take care of the infrastructure you work on. And then the state of tech when it comes to IT infrastructure and connectivity. Then this is also the reliability of the company and the job of the IT admins. And connectivity, very important, because also if you have a great IT infrastructure, for example, if you also have your own data center, but let's talk about connectivity in Germany. You have latencies, you have problems to up and download things on your servers. Might be a problem, especially if you have to quickly react to an attack or to a threat situation. And the last thing is the easiest and not so easy part in the end, keep going. And keep going in cybersecurity means every day, because every day you wake up, the threat situation might look different. And document everything. And document everything doesn't mean, we write something down and then we hope that people work like this. Document everything means that you update or upgrade your work processes. Then you write down how they work, also on a daily basis if possible. Like if you have a project management or an ITIL ticket system, you can use these, for example, something that's already there, to have just more tickets and more documentation, also to be used for the cybersecurity and regulation part, maybe also client or audits from government institutions. And then you have a documented work process that takes you some additional minutes every day for documentation, but where you don't have to sit down when a client asks or any auditor comes in, where you don't have to sit down for months to find all the information. So you see the keep going part is maybe the most important, not the most popular, totally makes sense, but only if you just spend some minutes and not like have an additional project with the whole cybersecurity documentation. Thank you for your time. And do you have questions?